You'll know it. You can't miss it. We'll pick you up there. Move the camel. Move the camel. The camel. Move the camel.
Move the camel. Where?
Anywhere is on my foot.
Oh. You seen any suspicious-looking characters around here?
No.
Do you live around here?
Yeah.
How's it look?
This one's bad.
Would you describe exactly what the last man who passed a $20 bill to you looked like?
30, tall,
About 6 feet tall?
6'5",
Dark brown hair.
light colored.
Sounds like our man.
That's him.
We're gonna have to take these bills for evidence. Make up a receipt.
This one's bad, too.
This one's bad, too. I'd like you to notify all the other establishments in the area of this situation. What's the name of your establishment?
Red's Corner Bar?
Are you Red?
Yes, sir.
You dye your hair?
No.
Why do they call you Red?
Oh, it's short for Red Wood. My last name's Wood.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is nothing whatever to fear. That is an escape-proof cage, certified by the New York City
A lot of people, when you're on the show, they write me and they call and they say, why does Charles Grodin treat you so shabbily? Doesn't he like you? Or what is it? I mean, you want to address that or speak to that question?
I don't know what to do when I'm out here because most of the reasons people come on a talk show, I can't really do that. I can't come out and why do people come on a talk show, in your opinion? You're Mr. Talk Show.
To plug this book, to plug this movie.
Okay, and if I would do that,
What else are you here for?
That's what I'm asking. If I would do that, your attitude would be disdain. You know, when I tried to talk about my book in the hardcover, you said $18.95. You know, that's a lot of money for a book. I said, you know, maybe if it's Mother Teresa's life. You know.
You remember those things, don't you?
Yes, I do.
I didn't know you were that sensitive. You actually remember that.
I'm so sensitive. I really can't answer a question from someone who's not interested in the question.
I'm very interested in the question. Now, what? All right, it's okay. I'm used to it. Now, what does the paperback go for?
This is
hard copy
$9.95.
Well, now we're talking.
And that, of course, are clips from the sadly late, completely great Charles Grodin. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Sideshow. This is Jacques.
This is Biff.
And as we talked on last week's podcast, the week before, we lost an actor that both Biff and I love very much, Charles Grodin. Biff, where did you jump on the Charles Grodin train?
Yeah. I mean, so the first movie probably was King Kong, the 70s remake of King Kong with Jessica Lange. So that was the first one. But I think the one where I really paid attention to Charles Grodin was Heaven Can Wait, which came out probably around that time, and only because we had HBO and it was, for whatever reason, on all the time on HBO. So I kind of watched that movie more than I probably should have. But obviously, Charles Grodin is fantastic. So that's kind of that's my jump on point. I think those two movies.
So of course I lived for King Kong as a kid. I had an uncle who, let's see the right way I can say this. He didn't come from the industry himself of cricket noses, but he did have a lot of friends who had things that fall off trucks a lot. And somehow he had a contact where we got to go to this drive-in movie theater for free all the time. And we were really poor, but that was always a big treat to get to go to the drive-in theater. And so I'm 7 when King Kong comes out. And for the first half of the summer, that was the second movie. And for the other half of the summer, that was like the first movie, that would play it. Like
there you go.
Us.
Yeah.
And then, of course, growing up again, our next door neighbor, Richie Rich, which in retrospect, he was a middle class. His dad was a middle class working guy,
right? Above
ground pool, but he was the rich kid in our neighborhood. And
it's all relative, right? It's all relative.
He had HBO. He also I used to sleep over there a lot. He also had his parents hand me down waterbed. And they had HBO. So as you're saying, the same thing. It's like I'm 9 when Heaven Can Wait comes out, but I must have seen it And I love football.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
But for me, Charles Grodin, for me, it was the Dave Letterman stuff. But first,
Right.
I mean this when I say this. I've talked about it with you. I've talked about it with everybody I know. I've talked about it in the podcast. The movie Ishtar is a fucking fantastic movie. It has great actors who give great portrayals. The music is ungodly, amazingly great. Absolutely great. You know, and Charles Grodin kills it in that movie. And I dare anybody who's seen the movie to tell me it sucks. And again, I'm not getting into the whole Ishtar thing except to say it was a movie that had a lot of problems on the production side of it. A first-time filmmaker went over budget, insisted on shooting in location. You got Dustin Hoffman, you know, coming off, I forget what he was coming off of, you know, and
Tootsie maybe,
and Warren Beatty coming off like Reds. Like within the last 2 years, both of those men had won Academy Awards. So you're getting them at their top of their earning, you know, and you pile all these things on. It's a dark comedy that could never make the money it was spent. Even if it was a blockbuster, it had to make E.T. level money. It had to make, you know, Close Encounters money, you know, movies that came out around that time. And it's a cerebral movie. Charles Grodin in that movie, you know, plays like, you know, he's a high up CIA guy. And it's a Middle Eastern, you know, land dispute, ancient map type thing. But his portrayal, I don't know how many times I say, move the camel, move the camel, and you know, and here's Warren and Dustin, Dustin Hoffman thinking he's talking in code, and he's like, you know, because he had him go to the market and buy a blind camel. He kept sending him on these fool's errands, and he kept delivering them, you know. And anyways, you know, and then there's this great line at the end of the movie where the president is calling him saying, and it's a one-sided phone call. It's like,
Sir? We did not shoot at 2 Americans in the desert. We did not. Who told you that? Secretary of State? Well, how would he know? Well, let me look into it. I'm going to look into it right away.
He is so good at playing that swarmy guy. So for me, it's Ishtar. It's 3 things. It's Ishtar, which I just went over. Yeah. It's the Dave Letterman thing, which I love to talk about in a second. And also, it's Midnight Run.
Oh yeah, Midnight Run is fantastic. That was the one. I think that is my favorite, role that he did. And it's one of those things where it is such a well-written movie, and there's it is one of those things where it's one of those rare movies where people aren't outrageously like so many of those movies have these people with kind of bigger than life personalities, and just kind of total these. I mean, everybody in that movie, well, not everybody, but both De Niro and Grodin were very kind of laid back and kind of a low tone kind of
well, he
performances.
Such a cerebral second fiddle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
absolutely
the anti-buddy comedy movie.
Yep. Absolutely.
It's in that category. Did I buy it when it came out on VHS? Of course I did. Did I get it when it came out on DVD? Well, who wouldn't? Do I now own it digitally? Sure, of course. But if I'm getting ready to go to bed, the Bruins game's over, I'm done watching the highlights, and I'm just kind of flicking, and on FX, here's Midnight Run. It's like, oh, God damn it. Well, now I have to watch it from whenever I jumped on. Commercials and all. For some reason, it's like when you hear a song on the radio that you own on 10 different platforms, but you're hearing it on the radio, and it's a little more special. But Midnight Run is that movie where if I accidentally see it on at 3 a.m. as I'm cleaning up, getting ready to go to bed, I'm stuck.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, fantastic movie, and once again, very slick writing, and Grodin's performance. It's just, I think there's that kind of mold of actors, right? There's people like him. Is it Larry Miller? Is that his name? Hector Elizondo. Those kind of guys that. And obviously, Tucci's another one, right? I mean, those guys that can play these parts without they don't go overboard, and yet they just kind of take over scenes.
It is. And getting back to, King Kong. It's funny because I was just talking to management, and I'm like, yeah, he played, because she didn't grow up with those movies as much. I'm like, he played the role that Jack Black had in the remake.
Right.
So she knows that character, and I'm like, yeah, Jack Black did a really good, version of him, but he was parroting him,
right.
And then do you remember how he meets his demise in King Kong?
It's been a while since. No, I don't.
He gets stepped on.
Okay, yeah,
he gets stepped on.
It's been a while since I've seen it, but yeah,
it's that big carnival, like it's like a fair, you know what I mean?
Right. When they had him on display, that's right.
The unbreakable cage, the state of New York is certified, and like he shackles, tears it apart like toothpicks, and it's great but then going back, like you said, I mean, the movies that he's done and the level of actors that he's been side by side with, he's always one of those guys where with Beethoven, he played a lead. And granted, it's a farcical family thing. With Clifford, it was a lead. But truly,
Clifford was brutal.
And we will do a sideshow of our favorite actors' worst movies. Like Steve Martin has done some just duds, but Beethoven 2. I don't remember if there was a Beethoven 3, but Clifford. But when you think about who he was side by side with in those, the other movie, and you're a few years older than me, so this is another one of those. I'm 12. It was the second feature. It was a primetime feature at the drive-in, one summer for the first half of the summer. And the second half of the summer, it was the movie that they played at dusk to get the ball rolling. The Great Muppet Caper.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's that's one of the rare, I think that's a very different role that he played compared to everything else. I think, he had a very unique role.
And the guys like him, you're looking at that. Okay. So I'm looking at, a list here. So that's 81. And that's coming off Heaven Can Wait. It's coming off some great stuff. I mean, he did Rosemary's Baby, did Catch 22, did Heartbreak Kid, killed it on Broadway for many years. Same time next year, won an Emmy for writing, being one of the writers on the Paul Simon 1978 show. But he gets the call from his agent saying, okay, the Muppets are huge at the time. You're going to play the bad guy. Okay, yeah, sure. And you're going to fall in love with Miss Piggy and be conflicted. And you're going to have to convey you still have this obligation to the bad guy crew you're at, but you're going to be torn because of your infatuation and your true romance with Miss Piggy. And he said, in.
Why not, right? Of all the people, why not?
So I do. I loved him, and I loved him so much in that. And then again, like I've already mentioned, like Steve Martin, it was a movie that when he passed away, and I saw so many people on Twitter, it's like, oh, he was great in this, great in this. It's like, I did love Steve Martin, and I'm like, oh, right. The Lonely Guy, for some reason, never really pops up on my favorite Steve Martin movies.
Yeah.
But they did that together, and it was Patton Oswalt's brother, Matt Oswald, who posted a link, and he's like, I could watch, there's a couple scenes where, they just meet on a park bench, and they just talk, they're friends. And their dialogue is a big nothing burger. But it's Steve Martin and Charles Grodin having these innocuous, very funny but cerebrally funny conversations.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that is so. It just kind of goes back to the original point, which is that he's one of those guys that can be doing really not much, right? He's very kind of laid back and not, overly exaggerated at any point, and yet he can kind of still, make a scene, right? That's kind of his skill.
Now,
so
because of our age difference, I'm early in high school. You're at Caltech at the time. Where did you fall into place with like Letterman and the late night talk stuff?
Well, yeah. So I was actually a Letterman guy, early on, only because I actually loved Letterman when he had the daytime show. I don't know if you remember that, but
you might be the one guy who said that, because I think it lasted. I don't know how it didn't last long.
I don't. Well, I think. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember how long it lasted, but I do know that just had it was basically unlike any other show. Where the one bit that I remember is he had I want to say Mariel Hemingway on the show to clean fish. And so the audience members would come on with fish, and he had like rules like no catfish. And, I just remember this. Okay, there's nothing, so, and in fact, I actually, thanks to a friend of mine, I actually got to see Letterman live when they came to LA. I didn't get a seat, but I got one of those, essentially you could stand around and watch, from the side kind of a thing. So, and it was the Eddie Van Halen appearance. So it was obviously, an amazing experience, but I've been a fan so obviously that, and even on Carson, right? Carson and Letterman, but especially on Letterman, that's where he was the best.
And again, another future Sideshow is people who just killed it on the talk shows. Like Carson had a dozen people over the years, and Letterman had many people that he had these. Great, but his relationship. So I'm in college, second year, third year of 2 years after high school. I did the junior thing and played and I played in the Iron League. I literally played in the Iron League, and then I went to college. And so my second or third year in, we had this friend who, I don't remember if she lived with us or was just there all the time. This girl named Katerina Pismopoulos, I believe is how you say her name. You've never seen a person who loved somebody more than she loved, my guitarist, my friend Dan. And one night, and back then, we didn't have TV Guide. It's like, you didn't know who was coming on Letterman until Letterman came on,
Right. Yep.
And it's like, and our guest, Charles Grodin. And I say to her, it's like, Kat, this is going to be awesome. They're really good friends, but they are going to be so awful to each other.
Yeah.
It is going to be ugly and messy. And I don't know if it's Greek culture. I don't know if it was isolated to her, but and it was very funny because we were great friends. She really had to warm up to me because she didn't get sarcasm.
Interesting. Okay.
She didn't, and she would get mad sometimes of how mean I was to Dan and my friend John and Ron and stuff like that, because I would just walk in and, hey, shitholes, what are you up to? And it's like, how can you talk to your friends like that? So I remember her, and I'm not kidding, almost being driven to tears because it hurt her so deeply that these two men can be just so mean,
savage
to each other, just absolutely brutal, and it right out of the gate, like however Letterman introduced him. And I remember it was yesterday. Grodin takes the 2 steps out and just stands there, and there's that awkward moment of like, really, is this how we're going to do it? And he's like, turns to leave, and Letterman's like, no, come on. And it went downhill from there. It was awkward silence. It was just, he was so good on that. And like, I wish I was better at names. There's a curator who has, he VHS'd, I think, every Letterman episode ever. And he's archived it. And every time somebody passes away, within a couple days, he has the best of this guy on. And the Letterman people and NBC and stuff like that have purposely looked the other way because they realize what a service
Right,
this
right,
guy
yeah.
is providing to them
Absolutely,
because
yeah.
nobody archived it. You know what I mean? It's like it's the last generation. People have started to say, "Oh, we might want to repurpose this. We might,
Right.
want to hold on to this thing." But it's one of those things. And again, he wasn't Letterman. I mean, the 12:30 slot was a lot different than the 11:30. I mean, you look at Carson's numbers. It's like, from 11:30 to 12, he had twice as many viewers, 3 times as many viewers as he did from 12 to 12:30, type thing. Any of those people, do. So those early years when it's 12:30, on a school night. So it's drunk college kids, it's high college kids, it's but Charles Grodin on that again, it's for me, it's Ishtar, it's David Letterman, and it's Midnight Run.
Yeah, I would say this. There's also she did a Goldie Hawn movie. He did a Goldie Hawn movie, right? The was it? I think it was Goldie Hawn. Seems like old times with the Goldie Hawn movie.
He had also done. No, I'm thinking he did the play same time next year.
Oh, okay.
That was on Broadway.
Okay.
I don't know if he did the movie version of
the movie was Alan Alda, I want to say.
Yeah.
So
I think you're right. Yes.
Yeah.
And then I guess later, and again, I knew this. I remembered that I knew it once I reread over the last week that he had a talk show on MSNBC for a few years in the late 90s, early 2000s.
I do not remember that. Yeah. Okay.
And I remember for a short time, there was a 60 Minutes 2. And I forget what CBS affiliate that ran on, but he was also one of the correspondents on that. He did the I almost said Mickey Rooney. You ever wonder who was that guy? Who am I thinking of? At the end of 60 Minutes, always had the
okay. I can't.
And that was one of his things. You ever wonder why? And now, I've seen.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about, and I can't remember his name.
Jim Gaffigan now kind of fills that role on 60 Minutes. He's done a few of those.
Okay. I did not know that. Because who watches 60 Minutes now?
Yeah, old people, but I'll see posting his clip on Twitter, when he does something like that.
Andy Rooney?
Andy Rooney, thank you. I was saying Mickey Rooney. I'm like, no, that's not right. So,
the Rooney sounded right. So,
and another show that I watched, I'm surprised I didn't watch more of this because I used to love Louis C.K. And, so there was a good 10-year window where Charles Grodin retired. And he kind of came out of retirement. He did the political correspondent thing. He did the talk show. He did the political talk show thing.
Okay.
And then he pretty much went away for 10 years, came out of retirement in 2015 and had a recurring role on Louis C.K.'s show for a few years that I used to see him on. But yeah, he, the last few years he kind of, faded away and, whatever reason, maybe it was, I don't know.
That was very noticeable that, so like I mentioned the pain that I experienced with Clifford, and you look at his, IMDb credits and you see Clifford, and then another, thing that kind of came in right at the same time, and then nothing for 12 years.
Right.
It's like Clifford destroyed his career.
Or it might have just destroyed him.
Yeah.
Maybe he's like, what the fuck am I doing?
What am I doing?
Because it did not destroy Martin Short.
I don't remember what he did after that though. So,
someday sadly we'll do a Martin Short one, but no, we don't have to wait for somebody to die to do one. We can definitely, he's definitely worthy of doing.
Now I'm kind of curious. Oh yeah, there was. Oh yeah, I guess there was stuff.
But he did. It was a couple years after that he went into the political talk space and on the precursor. It wasn't MSNBC first, but he had a show on some like CSNBC and then went to MSNBC.
Okay.
Then went to 60 Minutes. But yeah, it might have been Clifford might have been just the check please moment.
Yeah. I mean,
I got enough money. I don't need this shit. And if these are the roles I'm getting at 60, then what are we doing?
It really is. That really was a movie where not just, Grodin, but, maybe things were kind of thinning out for Martin Short at that point. But what was Martin Short thinking, right? I mean, so yeah.
But yeah, Clifford,
it's a far cry from the Three Amigos. Let's just say that
it's a very far cry from the Three Amigos. So that again, that's my ranking. Ishtar, Dave Letterman, Midnight Run. So when I'm hearing from you, so you do yours. What are your top three? Heaven Can Wait.
Well, certainly, I think as far as movies go, Midnight Run, like no question, and certainly the Letterman, and I think just talk show in general. Even Letterman was a very special relationship. But I think even when he was on Carson, I think he was a really good guest, and there was, and I think there's a certain level of respect that you probably had to give Carson, right? I mean, by the time Grodin was who he became, big enough to be a guest, Carson was a monster. So, so there's I think a certain level of respect that he had to give, but still there was that edginess, if you want to call it that just didn't exist with other guests.
Well, it is. It's funny because at that time, I mean, he's doing huge things again, with Dustin Hoffman, with Warren Beatty, with Paul Simon and stuff.
Right.
So when he's on with Carson, it's true. He has to kiss the ring.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
But and all that stuff is not scripted, but they know what's going to happen,
Right.
and his relationship, Carson's relationship with this guy, that guy was explosive, was funny, it was insulting, but he was, it's 1 and 1A with Super Dave Osborne and Charles Grodin. They both had that same coming on the show, the condescension you could, and the tension you could cut with a knife. But each and every time, and the episodes, because I watched so many of them over the last week, the times when Charles Grodin would come on with nothing to plug.
Right.
Just to come on. And it started early. Like, I don't remember this one episode, but early on in 82, he came on Letterman, and it started from his very first appearance on Letterman. It started in the makeup room where Grodin was being belligerent to the makeup artist and belligerent to all the way. And he was coming on to promote another A-list, an actress, A-list actress. Him and her were trying to launch something called like the friendliness campaign, that the world would be a better place if you just took a moment out to be friendly to a stranger. But that's why he was on to promote that. But from the makeup chair out there, he was in complete a-hole to, everybody. It was a fun rabbit hole to have fallen down. The last,
that we should probably do that. The Letterman guest, and then obviously we need to bring that other guy in for to talk about something like that, right?
Without a doubt, yes, no,
without a doubt,
and that won't be a hard sell to get him to come.
Yeah, because there's some other Drew Barrymore's another interesting guest on Letterman. There was this weird, that weird, creepy relationship that they had. And there's also like Marv Albert is another one that's, I don't know if you remember Marv Albert being on the show.
It's funny. In the culture that we have now of move on and time's up, you would think like the lecherous, because Letterman has his skeletons as far as like affairs and this stuff and whatever. His head writer, he had a great relationship forever, which was a woman. And Drew Barrymore was a child, but she was the one that initiated.
No, that's what I mean. It's
flashing him, and then years later, I don't want to get off Grodin, but we will definitely do a Letterman thing, like greatest guests. But with Grodin, unlike a lot of the people that Joe and I have done sideshows with, and you and I, it's always, when we did like the Fred Willard or whomever, they still were active and working. The fact that he wasn't, it doesn't make it as heartbreaking. It's like you're sad when this person that has this body of work you really like died, but it's not. I think it hurts a little less than, he was on the Goldberg still working. She was just on the cruise working, or he had a tour coming, like Rickles, had tour dates coming up and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, he was 86 when he died, I guess. And it kind of took me a bit to kind of think through things. 86 sounds kind of older than I expected him to be. But then again, it's roughly, what would have been my mom's age. And I guess it all makes sense that, he was mom's age when I was watching him as a kid. But still, obviously, it just, I didn't really realize he was on Rosemary's Baby until much later. Like, I knew Charles Grodin as this other person before I found out later that, oh, hey, he was in Rosemary's Baby. Because when I saw Rosemary's Baby when I was much younger, I had no idea who Charles Grodin was. He was that dude on, whatever, right?
And it's funny, yeah, because you look in that's 68, so that's 53 years ago. So he's late 20s, when that's coming out.
Yeah,
And you say they can, college, he putzed around in theater and stuff like that before he got his big break, and that. But from that point on, he was so gainfully employed for a good hit after hit after hit in the 70s and all through the 80s. Like you're right, Biff. As I'm looking at this, from 68 to 94, big movie, huge co-star, Clifford.
Well, I mean, can we name an actor, actress, whatever that doesn't have that one? It's like, what were they? There's all the majors have that. What were they thinking? Movies, right? So.
And it was a steady decline because he did Beethoven into Clifford. So he goes from Midnight Run.
But I actually thought Beethoven was okay, right? Because it is what it is, right? And it's really a dog-centric movie, really.
Look,
so
Cheaper by the Dozen.
Yeah.
It's an okay film. Farther the Bride. It's an okay film. It's the fourth sequels in those franchises where you're like, Steve, what are you doing, sweetheart?
Yeah.
But yeah, so luckily there wasn't a follow-up to Clifford, but that's my thoughts on the great Charles Grodin. He is somebody who does take up a little more real estate in my head than I've thought, because I've thought about those Letterman things a lot. I think about Ishtar more than anybody on this planet next to my friend.
Yeah, one of these days I'm going to watch that movie, and then you know what? And
it's on one of the platforms. It was a while ago. You know how they cycle out, but it
right.
But again, it's honestly, if they shoot that in the Mojave Desert for half the money, I'm serious. But you didn't have to go to the Middle East to actually shoot that. If you took the same movie and used B-list guys, high C-list, B-list guys, at the top of the food chain. You still have Charles Grodin and a couple of the other character actors that you see pop up at that time.
Right.
If the production cost is what it should have been for that movie, it would have been fine. Honestly, if it was a director who wasn't 2 months behind and going over budget, it would have been fine. But it's one of those things where every time I say Ishtar, they're like, oh, that movie's awful. Did you see it? Well, no, but I heard it's awful. It's like, okay, well, it wasn't a box office success, but again, my son's favorite movie, it was not a bomb at the time, so it's not the best apples to apples comparison. But Scott Pilgrim didn't kill it when it came out, but over the last 10 years, it's gotten more popular and more popular and more popular. And that's one of the things. It's like, just because a movie doesn't make a ton of money doesn't mean it's a bad movie. I mean, I've seen really good movies that haven't made money, that for the marketing or whatever, it didn't click on. And then, we've seen crappy movies like Father of the Bride 4, which they had to make a Father of the Bride 5 because the last one did so well. But give it a try. I mean, honestly, and look up the movie. I'm blanking on the guy who did all the big music in like the late 70s, 80s. Paul Williams. Paul Williams did the music for that. And I've heard him on a couple things, notably like the Gilbert Gottfried podcast, where he was so proud of the music that he did for Ishtar because he had to work so bad. He had to work so hard to make bad songs. Like, but still catchy. You know what I mean? He had to write songs that they could earnestly feel good about, and the whole premise of the movie is They're two bad songwriters who think the only reason they're not Simon and Garfunkel is they don't have a manager. So they end up getting them a manager. They get themselves a manager who's as bad a manager as they are songwriters. And the only place he can get them a steady gig is playing at the hotel where Americans stay in the fictitious country of Ishtar.
There you go.
And it's farcical, it's funny, but the songs, they're awfulsome. They're like really catchy, fun to sing, awful songs. So
yeah,
that's your weekend. And any final thoughts on the great Charles Grodin?
No, I think we covered. I mean, once again, a great loss, but it's also kind of unfortunate that, and I don't know what his health was like in the last few years. I haven't really looked that part of it up, but it is kind of too bad that I think that despite Clifford and everything else, right? I mean, there were so many movies. I think that if we look at what came out, say between 94 and 2010, I'll bet you we could find a lot of movies where it said, if we put Charles Grodin in there, it would have been awesome,
100%.
right? I mean, that's the thing. So that's our loss.
It is. So this has been our Charles Grodin Sideshow. Biff, thank you for indulging me on this, half-hour long self-indulgent theater of
rambling.
Yes, exactly. So collectively, we are telling you to go watch Midnight Run. Give another watch to the Great Muppet Caper. Maybe check out King Kong, but maybe stay away from Clifford. Thanks, Biff.
There we go.
And Dabney Coleman said certain things and they were allowed to go out on the air.
But it's just a joke, and
well,
I can't. Are you serious about this?
I don't think it's a joke.
You're really actually serious?
Yeah, I don't think it's a joke, and I think when the audience sees the tape of the previous shows, they will see that it's not that clearly a joke, and I don't think it is a joke. In fact, I brought with me tonight my attorney, who's going to sit here with me, and so Neil Freemans is my attorney, and I'd like to bring him. Neil.